Okay, yesterday, I guess it doesn't matter to you what day it is. Yesterday I got the tube done and domed the ends in anticipation. I'm going to be cutting 3 valleys in here and have raised points, which you'll see when I get to that point. Anyway, so right now, rather than try to do it later, which I could do, I'm going to go ahead and polish these 2 domed ends. You know, I'll get it fired up. In fact, we'll even do a little bit of a video because I keep trying to reinforce the fact that I use this wood wheels almost exclusively on my polishing, or pretty much exclusively, unless I'm cutting turquoise. Anyway, I'm going to go ahead and get this going a little bit, and Greg can get a little bit of a video of it, but it's going to take a while. Unfortunately, we're getting wiser in our videos. This is 1200 diamond. People always complain that they get orange peel on jade. Well, this is the way to have no orange peel, which you'll see when the speed's 100% done. You know, you can already see on this that it's smoothing out a lot. You know, it looks like there's a few minor scratches on it, so I'll really take my time on the 1200, and then we'll go up to a polish on the ends to give you an idea. Okay, I forgot that I had used a 600 mesh. That one I think says 400, it doesn't matter. I had used a file flat to help smooth out those ends how I wanted them, and I was just over at the other place and realized that it left 600 mesh scratches in here. So I'm using just an old clothespin that's been impregnated with 600 diamond in oil to get these ends all smoothed out. I'll go ahead and turn this around so you can see the difference. Oh no, I had it the right way. Look how nice and smooth and shiny that is at 600 mesh. So I'll go ahead and do the other end, and then I'm going to go ahead and hit it over here with the clothespin in 1200 mesh, and maybe even go all the way to polish in this watchmaker's lathe. So there we go. Okay, Greg just showed me over on my jeweler's, or my jeweler's lathe, watchmaker's lathe, using clothespins. This one's a 1200, I have one that's a 600, and then I just made one that's a 14,000. This is the results of 600 a little bit, then I went to 1200, and then I went to 14,000. And that's the polish I got just by rubbing that wooden clothespin piece on this as it spun. And I defy anybody to say there's any orange peel on that. And that'll do it. Okay, I'm getting ready to put the little valley cuts in this bead. I've set up the rod that I spun it on is in this pin vise, which is in what's called a spin index. I'm not going to be spinning anything. I'm using this piece of jet as a stop. So when I put it in there and spin it by hand, it's always hitting the same spot. I took a dial indicator along this edge, and this rod is within 1/1000th of an inch of being perfectly straight, so I'm confident that all my cuts will be plenty close. I'm getting ready to cut a center valley in here, roughly the width I want it, and then I'll cut 2 lesser width valleys on both ends. And this is an extremely long process, so we'll get back to you. Okay, I just got set up to cut the valleys on this. I'm starting out pretty much dead center on the bead. I use this handle here to feed it only in one direction. Each one of those lines represents 1/1000th of an inch. But as I move along, I can only move it about that much, and I gotta spin it like this as I'm moving it. This isn't automated, it's all hand. You turn the machine on, which I'll do. Let me get this down. Put some water going, and then you have to move it, spin it, move it, spin it. So I'm going to end up doing that for probably literally a couple of hours, because I can only go in so deep on a cut because I'm on a thin rod, and the pressure of the diamond tool and stuff will make that rod flex a little bit. I wish I could go almost all the way to depth and make my cut, but I can only go in maybe 0.010 at a time, which is a 1/2 millimeter on the diameter each time. Obviously I'm going to go as deep as I think I can get away with. Anyway, I'll feed it over to a certain spot in here somewhere, and then I'll pull the bead off, flip it over, and do it to the same exact spot, and that'll establish my center valley. And then I can make my smaller width valleys on the other end. Anyway, I'm going to get to cut, and once I get a nice flat in there, we'll film a little bit more. Okay, all I did just now, this is the first pass. I was trying to establish my center width, because there's going to be 3 cuts in this. And if you look real good, you can see where that tool's just been cutting gouges as I move it along. It leaves a concave cut. When I get toward the end, I'll feed it through a lot smoother. Right now, I'm just trying to get material out of the way. And what I'm planning on doing is this hole is, turn the thing on. This hole is 110,000ths of an inch in diameter, or close enough. So if I want a 40,000th wall, I have to add 80,000ths to that. So that's 110 and 80, call it 200,000ths of an inch. So right now, this thing's at 350. I need to still come down another 150,000ths of an inch toward the hole. As I go down, I'll keep checking it. I don't want to get it too thin. I'll backlight and things like that, because I want to just get the most dramatic effect I can from super bright green, and then it'll slowly come out at a taper to a much darker, almost black. We will see. Okay, I've now established my center valley. There's roughly a little over a 3 millimeter radius on these outside edges. I have it to the diameter, near finished diameter. I could go a lot thinner, but I don't think I'm going to. So next I'll reset up and I'll start cutting a little valley in this end. I'll probably cut them both at the same time. Just to give you an idea, I would guess, and I'm just guessing, I could put it on a timer, but just to get this valley cut out was probably 2.5 to 3 hours. So very tedious. I'm working in my brains on how to make that less time consuming, because I really like making these style of beads, but they just take so many hours, it's beyond ridiculous. So if you're going to do stuff like this, use killer material or don't even bother. Anyway, that'll do it. Okay, I just finished the first outer edge, cut the valley in it. Right there you can see that this diameter and that diameter are pretty darn close to one another. I'm going to go ahead next and cut this end the same as this end, and I may or may not have a video of it when it's all roughed out. After I get it roughed out, I'll start using a 360 mesh diamond, and I'll bring all of these to points all the way across. I'll get my points, and then it'll be pre-polished then. You know, there's still quite a few hours in this thing. I'm not even gonna hazard a guess, but it's getting close to the design I wanted. You know, you just mirror this over to the other side and you know what the bead's gonna look like. So we will be showing you it when it's probably ready for polish. Okay, we didn't film a whole lot of what I've been going through over on the milling machine. It's just so tedious and so time consuming. I have this right now to the point of close enough to call it finish. This center part's done to 600 mesh. I'm going to go ahead and finish the two outer edges to 600. I will make the peak a little bit thinner on each of the raised areas. And then what I'll do after I get both ends to 600, I'm going to make a wooden dowel that is that perfect radius. I'll go ahead and use diamond oil and diamond on the wood dowel to get those radiuses up to final polish, which will probably be 14,000 mesh. And then I'll have to go over to the jeweler's lathe again, or watchmaker's lathe, whichever you want to call it. And I will be using wood on diamond again to get the flats up to 14,000 mesh. You know, it's going to still be quite a few hours. I don't know how many. I'm guessing right now I've got probably 35 hours in this thing. And seeing as though we didn't want to watch 35 hours worth of video, we just did snippets, which I'm pretty pleased with what the results are so far. So I'm just going to go play, you know, work on this probably the better part of the day. Hopefully by this evening I'll have a... Okay, when I was doing the 600 yesterday, I put Sharpie on these radiuses, and I noticed right when I quit last night that I didn't quite get rid of all the Sharpie. So right now I'm just gonna get it set up to where I can get, probably just feed it over maybe 5/1000. Okay, I just put Sharpie on the 2 radiuses on this end and moved my table away some from the burr and moved it away some from what this radius should finish. So now I'll lower it down, get it locked in place. And then I'm going to feed it back to 0 again, because that's my diameter, and then I'm going to feed it so I can see the width of that point. I only want that width to be about 10/1000 for how I want this thing to finish. So I'll go ahead and get it going, and we'll get that down to 10/1000. Yeah, I hadn't even got to. I still need to go a bit. Because I'm not even to this edge yet. So. Okay, what I just did, I'm trying to make this point almost a point, but not quite. I need to get it, like I said earlier, I think, about 10/1000. And then when I start doing all my finishing, I'll go ahead and use a dowel with the diamond powder, like I said, and because I have scratches, you know, no matter what I do, there's scratches in that radius. I'll get all the scratches worked out of those radiuses, and hopefully I'll only have maybe 8/1000, 5/1000 flat up here. And then when I start doing my final finishing, I can slightly round that, so it won't be a flat, but it's pretty critical for the look of this bead that can, you know, it needs to be as narrow as possible without going to an actual point. So we'll see. Use it. Right. Okay, we're back at it again. I worked pretty long yesterday. Anyway, I machined a piece of dowel rod to the same diameter as this radius right here. And what I'm doing right now is I'm putting 600 diamond in oil on that wood, feeding up and down, which we'll film a little bit of. And I'm polishing, or I'm not polishing these, I'm getting them all smoothed out to 600 mesh and inspecting it quite often. I need to get all of the scratches from the diamond burr out of that radius, and then we'll go over to the jeweler's lathe and I'll smooth these parts out to 600 diamond. And once all that's done, it'll probably go pretty quick. I'll have to machine another 2 of these, one for 1200 and one for 14,000. And then the flats, I'll be doing all that over on the jeweler's lathe. Again, with wood, and we'll go ahead and film a little bit of that too. Anyway, this is going to take a while, so we might as well turn the camera off. Or no, let me show you first. This particular radius is almost done, but there was a bit of an undercut on it, so I'm trying to get the spot that was cut a little bit too much smooth. You can kind of see how smooth that is now. You know, as opposed to the other side, you can still see. Maybe not see it, but there's still diamond scratches in there from when I got it going. Anyway, you can tell it goes pretty quick. If the scratches are consistent, it goes real quick, but for whatever reason, this particular spot had one spot that was pretty deep. So, check it with the 10 power. Yeah, there's still just a little bit in here. One spot's pretty deep, so I'll just move it in a little bit toward that wood, and hopefully that'll come out here. The last thing you want to do is leave visible scratches, because if you leave a visible scratch at 600, I'll guarantee it's going to stay there. That looks pretty darn good. Okay, there's still some scratches from the diamond burr. I think what I'm going to do is go ahead and go through all of these radiuses and then do these flats, and then I can deal with this one radius so far that still has a pretty good scratch in it. Nothing major, but a pretty good scratch. So I'll just go ahead and go through all of these, get them to where they're to my satisfaction, and then we'll go over and start filming on the jeweler's lathe. Okay, I'm getting ready to work on these flats. I decided that I wanted to get them down real smooth before I continued on those radiuses. Again, I'm just using an old piece of a clothespin that I've been using for years. It's 600 mesh. I slightly hit it here. I'll go ahead and hit it a little bit so you can see how well this works. This is held on the drill shank with it's stretch wrap that you use in packaging. I wrap it around the drill of it and then I kind of force it on. It doesn't run super true, but it runs true enough. You can tell that's not spinning real fast. Probably should have had, I guess Greg probably took a picture of it before I started. If not, oh well. Anyway, you can hear that diamond cutting. You can see already, if you look down either one of these ends, there's all these ridges. You know, what I'm doing right now is I'm trying to get that face perfectly flat. And once I get it real flat, I'll use the edge of this is radiused off so I can work on those radiuses both ways. I need to get it where this flat works perfect into the lowest part of that radius. And again, all this kind of work is extremely tedious. So if you don't have patience, you might as well not start any kind of a job like this. That'll do it. Okay, one of the problems with how I was required to cut this, coming across this long flat, and then pausing and cutting that radius, letting it idle a lot on that radius. The flat was probably 2 or 3 thousandths higher than, I'll even say more than that. Some thousandths higher than where it settled in when I let the radius idle. So right now what I'm doing, which I'll go ahead and clean this off and stop it. There's still a little tiny undercut where the burr sat and idled. So I'm gonna have to keep working on that face until I can get that feathered into this radius. Once I get those flats done, I can get just probably a piece of wood dowel rod, and I can go ahead and spin polish these now that the radiuses now that I've gotten the flat down. But I don't know, I've been working, I'll just say 10 minutes, 10 or 15 minutes, and there's still a slight little undercut on this edge. This edge looks pretty darn good. But that's just part of the sport, as they say. That'll do it. I've probably been at this for an hour, hour and a half. I'm not really sure, maybe 2 hours. The first thing I did was I've smoothed out this center flat. There was a low area here, which I'm probably going to work on a little bit more, where the burr went below all this other. And I just worked this area. I'm using my clothespin, and then I got the pin thing I made out of the drill chuck, and I'm also using it just back and forth like that. And then that way you're just working the same radius. This particular end's pretty much done. I'm gonna go ahead and get this other end, and then I'm gonna get something, probably 1200. I've got some like plastic abrasive. And then I'm gonna round these flats off so they're not so blatantly obvious. Slowly round those off, and then I'll 600 them nice and smooth. And once I get all of it smoothed out like this, the next steps will go pretty darn quick. The big problem being is this lumpy stuff takes a while to get out. So I worked on this in maybe a half hour, maybe not quite that long. The hardest part was this center because of that undercut. That'll do it for now.
You want to kind of show the ends?
Yeah.
Don't move it too far from where you got it.
I can bring it back into view. You know, I just wanted to kind of let people.
Still's got a hot spot though.
Yeah, that's the trouble. That light's just too intense. Okay, this is going to be probably the end of the video. This is at 600 mesh. I still have to take it to 1200 and then 14,000, but this is really representative of the beautiful color that's in this thing. Fortunately, we kind of figure out a way to get a image of it where it's not so washed out with white. We can actually kind of enjoy it. I'll spin it some and I can always edit. That worked real good. Anyway, I just wanted to share this, how it is right now. For one thing, my buddy Greg's getting ready to go visit his family for Christmas, and hopefully I'll be done with the video and everything by the time he gets back. So let's wish him a Merry Christmas and have a safe trip.